It Happened on the Job, the podcast for entertaining and relatable conversations with contractors. My name is Mike Fisher. With me, as always, is my colleague, Brian Summers.
How's it going?
With us today is Martin Daszkal.
I guess I was supposed to do the
That's all good. That's all good.
Yeah, Martin Daszkal of AST Stone Corporation. How you doing, Martin?
I'm doing pretty good. How you fellas doing?
Good, thank you.
Very good. Good. Give us an intro about your company, how long you guys have been around, and what you do.
Well, I started out many years ago. I've been at it for about 30 years. AST Stone, from inception, started off as a stone and tile company, and it's also evolved into several different divisions with masonry division, architectural stone division, a slab for hard surface countertop division, and of course we still do all the tile, flooring, and showers and things like that for clients, so that if somebody wants us to do, let's say, a high-end project or whatever the project may consist of, we're able to handle everything on the house, so they have basically one company to deal with it, stone, tile, and masonry related.
Very good, very good. And you said about 30 years you guys have been on the job. Are you solely on the residential side? Do you ever kind of dabble in the commercial as well?
We do some commercial. The commercial we do is more higher end due to the type of work we do. When it comes to like higher end shopping centers or things like that, yes, we do some commercial.
So
Okay.
are you guys? Sorry, go ahead.
I was just say I'd say probably about 80% of it is high end residential.
Okay.
And
are you guys
all of California?
Are you guys getting into any of the cabinet work, or is that some drywall stuff, or is that a lot of stuff that you guys sub out?
Typically, that kind of stuff will sub out. There's so many guys around; it's not difficult to find smaller contractors, especially in the small, medium-sized remodels. But a lot of the stuff we're doing is on the high-end residential. It's they're ground-up type of projects. So we're in there just to do that portion of the work.
Right.
When we get in some of the smaller remodels, yes, if we're dealing directly with the homeowner, they'll want us to kind of handle everything for them, which we're capable of doing.
And how did you get started in the business individually? Did you start as a contractor somewhere, or did you start in management somewhere? Or?
Started as a contractor. My dad was a custom home builder back east out of Michigan, and I started working for him for a little while, and my father left, my parents left with my brothers down to move to Florida. I decided to move to California, and I just kind of started, fell into my lap, just started working in the stone industry as an installer way back when, and it quickly evolved to where pretty much within the first year, 18 months, I already had 8 or 10 guys working for me, and I've gone up as high as having 180 people working for me, and
wow.
as little as 10 or 12. Right now, currently, our company size is about 80 or 90 guys, including office and accounting, and it's become a fairly large stone company.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Congratulations. From an employee standpoint, doing the higher end stuff, I would imagine you have to have, pretty specialized employees. You just can't find a minimum wage guy to go in and do some high end marble and stone and some of the tile you guys are doing. I'm imagining. How are you guys developing a lot of that talent yourself? Are you finding it elsewhere? How are you guys going about finding?
A little bit of both. We have a system where we are hiring guys at not minimum wage, because minimum wage is hard to get anybody to show up because it's not easy work.
Right.
And some of it can be heavy and messy and things like that. But it's for a guy that's really looking for some sort of a career to be in the construction business. It's a great opportunity for a young guy that's maybe in his early 20s, decided to skip college and or what have you, and is looking for a trade. So we'll develop that person and work him into like that. He becomes part of our farm league, and he's going to eventually become an installer. So little by little, we start training them in different phases and facets of the installation process. We try to do a situation where you have different phases of any different project. We start them off at the different phases and let them move up. And eventually, after a couple of years, then they can get up to making a pretty decent wage and have a nice little career and go from there.
That sounds awesome. I mean, and for our listeners, I mean, we're ideally, right, we got a lot of contractors listening to us. Is that something you guys put together, that training plan on your own, developed it, written it out? Is it something pretty formal, or? And I would imagine you have somebody.
It's not. There is a formality to it. However, I don't have like set manuals on how to do it, because it's all on the job type of experience.
Right.
And they're learning as they go along. And as they're going along, every project has its individual
nuance,
little secrets and nuances that will allow them to embellish and learn on how to do different things, whether it's working with different, because there's so many moving parts, so many different materials, so many different things to know about. That's where the time comes in on learning it. You can teach somebody to learn how to do the installation on certain parts of the installation relatively soon, like months, not days. So at that point, they just learn to, as jobs come up, there's nothing better than the experience of working with your hands to learn how to appreciate how to do certain elements of each project.
Yeah, and I imagine bringing guys on, being able to see down the road that room for growth is probably a pretty good incentive, and I would imagine you got a pretty low turnover because of that.
We have a very low turnover, and it's huge for somebody who's not really necessarily college educated, or has decided to maybe go to college for a year or two and then drops out, or some of them even are still going to school because they want to learn the trade and they love the nuances and the aspect of having that, and then some of them decide to go on with their careers in school. Most 99% don't. They're looking for a home,
right.
And we're really good to our people. We pay fair. We treat everybody fair. We have incentives to make them stay, which isn't always just how much they're making per hour. Whether it be throwing Christmas parties, to giving them paid vacations, to things of that nature.
Yeah, I think that's an oversight a lot of the times that guys running companies don't understand is, the little bit of money that you spend on things like you were talking about, incentives and Christmas parties and benefits, and a lot of those things far outweigh the cost, or I should say the cost of training and bringing on somebody new, because you've got a higher turnover because you're not taking care of them, far outweighs the cost of some of those other things that you're doing.
Absolutely.
Which I think is phenomenal. Yeah.
It's huge. So you give them a fair wage, and you take care of them. You give them a place to call home, and typically they'll stay with you long term. And the longer they stay, the less, to a certain degree, because there's always another company, especially the last couple of years, where there's so much work going on, and there is a small shortage of manpower.
Yeah.
That they feel a loyalty because of how they're being taken care of.
Do you find that happens a lot in terms of your guys getting picked off by either competitors or other contractors in the area, or?
Not a lot, but every once in a while. It's happening right now only because there's so much going on that. But that's okay. If a guy wants to go and switch jobs to make an extra $50 a week, I understand that may be a big deal for them. And but we also warn them. We tell them, if you go,
this is a very unique culture.
Mind, this is a very unique, right? It is very unique in terms of everybody knows everybody and things like that. But also, more importantly, a lot of times those guys are being stolen to work on one or two projects, and then that other company that had to augment their staff by more guys in the field, sometimes a month, 2 months later, they find that they're getting laid off.
Right.
So it's a temporary adjustment to their salary or how much they're making. But I've had a lot of guys come back to me and say, yeah, I made more money, but then I was only working 3 days here and 5 days there and 2 days here. And I just said, heck with that. I'm going to go back to where I know how much I'm going to make every week. And that's it. And a lot of these guys are family guys. Their wives take care of them. They have a couple of kids, and they rely on a certain amount of money to get paid, whether it's weekly or twice a month.
Right. No, that makes sense. Well, and it sounds like too, the culture of the talent that you have, for the most part, recognizes that, and even or will recognize that on the back end when they jump ship for a little bit.
They do. A lot of them do, and a lot of them already know that. Even though they're getting offers, they already know, hey, I can go work for this guy and make more money for the next 6 weeks. But then what happens in 6 weeks? And they know that we are not bringing them. That once they leave, we kind of set a precedent. You can't come back.
Right. Well,
and now that they know, so that works out well for us.
Got it. Well, as a business owner too, I'm sure on a day-to-day basis you have issues that are coming up that you have to deal with, whether it's on the employee side or you're dealing with a project owner. If you could kind of just break down some of the processes that you have when you have to deal with that difficult decision, what does that look like for you?
On a difficult decision, you kind of have to take them one at a time and make kind of a quick decision on how to handle it, whether you're dealing with the project owner or you're dealing with the employee or installer on a particular site. We also have supervisors, so I don't have to handle a lot of the little details, but I do have to be responsible and I'm liable for everything. So my days are nonstop, every single minute of the day.
24/7?
It's 24. Well, no, at this point in my life,
you've got enough people in place. Yeah.
I got enough people in place. And, at the end of the day, you have to learn to, whatever time, 5, 6 o'clock, whatever you call ending your day, you have to be able to turn it off and get some rest and take care of yourself, because there is, a balance in life, whether it's just eating right or getting enough rest or having a little fun time or whatever with friends and family. You have to have that little bit of that balance. If you're just work, and you got that phone on 24/7, you're going to go nuts and you're going to burn yourself out.
Yeah. And you'll probably end up without a family too. When in that process, so it sounds like you have a team of people that are underneath you that are working for you. When do you get brought into that decision? Or are you keyed in right away in terms of what's happening, or do you trust them enough to kind of handle things first and then they report to you at the end of the day? How does that look?
It's kind of all the above, and it depends on the importance of what the decision is. The supervisors that work with me know our company's expectations, because we work at we're working with a very high level, intelligent, knowledgeable clientele, whether it's the designer, the architect, the homeowner, or the builder. They know they can count on us to give them a certain quality, with the understanding there's always going to be, some human error. Mm-hmm. So we try to minimize that as much as possible. And as things come up, the supervisors at this point now, after so many years, they know the expectations that I have, and they know what decisions I need to make, and they know what decisions they can make. Got it.
Mike, you have a question?
Yeah. So just on a day-to-day basis, what is the biggest hurdle or objective you guys face? Maybe you personally, or as a company that you guys.
I think I know where you're going with that question. The biggest hurdle these days, and it seems to be mostly the last few years, honestly, it's two things. Besides being able to get the work done, which sometimes is easier than the other two things I'm going to tell you. And that is, number one is knowing your numbers. You got to know your numbers. You got to know your job costs, because if you're not bidding them right, you're going to end up not making any money, right, or you're going to lose money, or you're going to be bidding too high and you won't get the project. So there's a fine line of where you need to be at. And if you don't know your costs, it's really easy to lose a lot of money. Not just, because we're at companies that are at my level that have, let's say, 30 or more people working there. It's very easy to have cost overruns or the anticipation of what it's going to cost to get this project done. So there's a fine line between making money, because we all work on pretty small margins at the end of the day, net margins. And the other thing is going to be, besides all that, is I found of extreme difficulty the last few years is we're constantly chasing money.
Yeah. Are you seeing that? Yeah, are you seeing that on the residential side, or working for custom home builders, or more on the commercial side?
Both. On the commercial side, you kind of already know going in, there's a time frame and a timeline for payments, and whether it's getting a deposit for materials or it's getting a draw. And typically they'll all have when they send us contracts for signatures, there's always a timeline in there, whether it's invoicing on the 1st and you get paid on the 25th, or invoiced by the 25th. And it's anywhere from basically 30 to 45 day typical turnaround time for getting draws. But still, even then, some contractors are, telling you what you want to hear to get the job done. And, oh, yeah, I'm going to have a check for you on Friday. But then Friday comes and they don't have it. So now you're chasing money and you're becoming the bank. And the other big caveat that you must have is you have to have the proper line of credit. And you have to manage those funds properly. If you don't, you're going to get in trouble. And it's easy. I've gotten in trouble before, not on purpose or not for any neglect or for mismanaging of funds, but you anticipate cash flow and you base some of your decisions on that projected cash flow. And when it doesn't happen, you can get in trouble.
Yeah, no doubt, for sure. You talked about job bidding and being, walking that fine line. How far out do you guys see? Are you typically bidding on projects?
The projects we bid, we're typically anywhere from, I would say we're probably about 6 months in advance on a lot of them.
Which is not too bad, because when I'm just trying to forecast, the labor, and obviously I know that there's insurance costs, obviously us from the insurance side, I understand that, that changes obviously every year.
Right.
So you guys become pretty good at that as far as being able to forecast a lot of that stuff?
Labor's not too bad. You can pretty much figure you're going to probably be in that, within 6 months or 8 months, your payroll costs are probably not going to change by much. It's the materials and things like that. So what we try to do is we try to put a clause in there. This bid is only good for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever number you want to put in there that's reasonable. So that this way, if the costs do change, at least you can go back to the contract and say, hey, I bid this job in June of 2019, and now you're probably ready for me to start. Well, our material costs have gone up 20% and blah, 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 and I can't afford to do this job at that price. And so they have to go back to their principal owner or whoever they're working with to be able to say, hey, costs have gone up, and they have. The cost of construction today is probably 20% higher than it was 18 months ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that's important for a lot of subcontractors, especially to recognize, is that, I feel like so many of them are so scared to lose a job that they just kind of do whatever they're being told to do and don't really push back or fight for their rights, if you will, or fight for their position. I mean, how often do you see yourself pushing back a little bit to make sure that you're in a position to maintain your margins and do what you need to do to make money?
It's real simple. I choose to fight certain battles. So if there's a battle over a small amount, if it's a client that you work with frequently, it's best to just let it go. If it's something that's a larger dollar amount, you have to just say, look, you have to stand up for yourself. It's very simple. It's a matter of, it's a very basic math. We're in this business to try and make a living and make money. We're not here for necessarily for the fun of it, but you have to, without, saying you have to enjoy what you do and you need to love what you do and things like that. And I do love what I do, and I enjoy my position and enjoy what I've created and the people that I work with. But sometimes the money and all the aggravation can get a little overwhelming, especially if you're losing money. It gets even more overwhelming because then all you're doing is thinking about the money constantly.
Right.
So
right.
It's best to choose your battles depending on what you're comfortable with and taking into consideration who the client is, what the scope of the work is. Am I going to get more work from this contractor? Maybe it pays to do this one thing at no charge, because you don't want to start pissing them off and nickel and diming contractors here and there, because now you're just creating a ton more paperwork as well for small amounts of money. And maybe it's better to just try to recoup that few $100s here or there on the small battles and sort of hide them somewhere else if you have to, or what's fair. And I even will tell the client, hey, I'm not going to charge you for this, but I know there's a big change order coming. I'm going to hide a few $100s into it. I'm letting you know that. I'm letting you know that's what I'm doing, because I try to be transparent and honest so that they know they can count on me. And what I tell them, hey, Marty's he's a good straight up guy. He's honest. He doesn't mess around. He takes care of it. He does what he says he's going to do, and that's it. And that's really the key to success in any industry, especially in construction industry, is just be what you are, do what you say you're going to do, and be fair. And don't lie. Don't make up stories or things like that, because people are understanding. If there's a particular material that's coming in, you're waiting for that material to show up and you can't start the job till next Tuesday, but they're expecting to be there Monday, just tell them, hey, I'm not going to get there until Tuesday or Wednesday. These are the reasons why. And they're going to say, no problem. So you have to put a little faith in people that they're going to understand the dilemmas, and everybody understands how busy everybody is. And that's it. Just stand up, just kind of be a stand-up guy. That's all.
Yeah, and you're right. And going back to that culture, that's, you're creating a culture between you and the client that there's trust and there's honesty between the two of you. And that I can imagine that probably opens up to future opportunities with that client, whether it's a builder or a designer of some sort. How often are you guys, is most of your work, I'm assuming, is probably referral based off of work that you've done, and it sounds like what you're speaking of in terms of the company that you've built, is what would you say percentage wise is referral based, or how would I put that?
Stuff that you actually bidding out and going to seek out.
Yeah. Versus like absolute new business that you've never, does that make sense?
That's a pretty, yeah, I totally get it. That's a pretty easy answer. So right now, there's so much work going on out there that they pretty much come to me. I don't have to do any calls on anything other than maybe calls on follow-up for maybe something I've bid.
Right.
Because we bid a lot of projects. I have a whole department designated to just doing estimating, because we also do shop drawings, because some of the work we do has AutoCAD drawings that are involved. So I have a small department that takes care of all the takeoffs, and I'm the one that basically just puts the numbers to everything.
Got it. And in terms of, and I'm going to kind of double back, you had talked about some of the difficult decisions and the things that go on in terms of pricing and a bid out. How often are you replacing a contractor that's either underbid and having to add a bunch of change orders? Is that something that happens often with you?
Not too often. I mean, There's always change orders, because every one of these houses we're working on are custom. And even though there's an architect who's designed XYZ project, whether it's commercial, residential, or whatever, there's always going to be some changes and things that are not anticipated. So I'm certain that every builder, general contractor, has some sort of a small slush fund to cover some incidentals. so that it kind of covers those little things like we didn't figure we had to do this, and you said you wanted this, and we figured that, and whatever along those lines, and we have to be conscious of all of it. But usually, I don't think I recall ever doing a job that didn't have at least one change order on it.
Okay.
Well, I think we've about grilled you enough on your business, and we thank you for your answers. I mean, I think it's been phenomenal to hear kind of how you guys work and what you guys do, and it sounds like what you guys do is very successful. So, congratulations on that. Is there anything you got for our listeners that might be along the entertainment side, a little bit funny, something maybe I can't imagine dealing with custom home builders is all butterflies and rainbows. I'm sure there's got to be something crazy that's happening.
There's always something. And for me, on a personal level, I've gotten the ability to meet some really interesting people, some extremely wealthy, some that just to the point where, as an example, there was a guy that we were working with a couple of years ago, and this is when Hillary Clinton everybody pretty much thought Hillary was going to win the presidency, right? And up until almost the day after, or the day before, nobody thought Trump was going to win.
Right.
Well, these guys told us.
Same night,
these guys, because they're so wealthy and they're kind of pretty high up the ladder when it comes to what's going on in the world, these guys told us, no, Hillary's not going to be there. It's going to be Trump. And they knew about it. They were telling us that a month or two before he was anything.
And these were guys you were doing a job for?
These are kind of people we're dealing with, and they're building, second and third homes that are $10 million, $15 million, $25 million homes. So it's not uncommon for us to have a large contract just on one house.
Jeez, yeah.
Because it's very high end, and a lot of times we're on these projects for a long period of time. And I've also, on another small note, I've also gotten a chance, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, I started making some friends with a few general contractors and some well-to-do homeowners, and kind of all became pretty friendly. And one day they said, hey, we're going out to the racetrack, car racetrack. And they said, you want to join us? I said, sure, I'll come out. And I basically got out there and said, hey, I can do this. I mean, I could actually go buy a car and go join you guys and do this kind of stuff. And they said, yeah, come on, join us. 2 weeks later, I bought my first race car, and I've been car racing with a lot of friends, and
no kidding,
that are in high places. And it's been the enjoyment that I've been looking for many years on a personal level. I played the golf. I'm a very athletic person. When I was younger, more so than I am today. But the car racing fitted exactly what I needed in my life on a personal level, from the adrenaline rush to just having something to really sink my teeth into that allowed me to get away from work and get my mind off of work and meet some really interesting people.
So do you actually go out and race them competitively?
Yes, I race competitively.
What kind of cars?
I've raced Mustangs competitively. I've raced Porsche 911, what they call cup cars, which is a purpose-built race car.
These are like the touring style races, like through.
They're road courses. So,
right. Yeah.
If you've ever heard of Laguna Seca, it's on pretty much on every gamer's races, racetracks. There's some bunch of others I've done too that you may not have ever heard of, but some of the big names like Circuit of the Americas, which is in Texas, Austin, Texas, where they hold the Formula One races.
Wow.
I've raced there. I've raced there a few times. I'd love to do some more out of back east tracks that are extremely iconic, that like Sebring or Watkins Glen or Virginia.
Watkins Glen would be cool.
Watkins Glen is a biggie. So, and I've gotten the opportunity to some of these friends, that I'm running around with. Some of these guys are really well to do, and these guys run around very high profile, and they run around in private jets. So not all the time, but every now and again,
sneak yourself on one of those.
They say, they know that. They invite me, say, hey, just come to the airport. We're leaving at this time. And I'll tell you, flying in a private jet makes you really appreciate how nice it is to have that sort of lifestyle. But then again, it can also, but at that point, it can also make it feel like you're an underachiever, even though you might be successful.
Where did I go wrong in life, right?
Like what? Like these guys, like I'm just as smart as them. They just got some bigger. They got some bigger breaks, and they ran in different circles when they were younger.
Well, that's awesome. So, kind of, just one last thing, real quick, and this is more kind of on a personal level. Where are you guys doing any work near the LA area at all, or are you most of it out in the desert?
We are. No, we've done some high-profile places in Los Angeles, Orange County, Newport Coast, San Diego.
So the reason I ask is I have a client up in LA that does probably a lot of the same homes, and you might have been on the same job with him. He's a framer. Have you ever connected with John Worster? And he's a car guy as well.
That name does sound familiar. I bet you if I ran into him, we could probably swap some stories.
I was gonna say, that's what I was gonna say. If you do ever run into him, obviously mention me first and Goodman, because he's been a client of ours for quite a while. But he's a big car guy. He would definitely appreciate talking some cars with you if you get to catch up with him.
It's anybody that's a car guy. You sit down and you start bringing up cars. That's it.
Yep.
That conversation
you're gonna be there a while.
Hours. You're gonna be there a while. I've had several meetings where I show up and it's been 5 minutes of work and 2 hours of cars.
No doubt.
But it's part of the relationship. Some guys go and spend 2.5 to 4 hours on the golf course. I'll sit in somebody's office and shoot the breeze for 2 hours about racing or about this car, or I had one of those and you had one of these, and it just goes on and on.
Yeah, that's awesome.
One of the fabulous things about being a car guy.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for coming on. We'll let you get out of here. Where can our listeners find you? Why don't you give a little shout out to yourself?
Obviously, the name of the company is called AST Stone Corp. We have a website, aststonecorp.com, and that's a great place to just find everything you need to know there, pretty much about us. And there's probably not too much we can't handle or that we don't take care of in the stone tile and industry.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Martin. Appreciate your time today, and we appreciate all the stories and the racing that we were able to talk about today.
We could go on for many hours on the race since we started on coast.
Yes, we could.
Yes. Well, fellas, it's good chatting with you, and reach out to me anytime with any questions. And I like helping people out, so anytime I can be of any help, let me know. I'm there.
Yeah, we feel the same way. So
awesome, Martin. Yeah,
appreciate it.
You guys take care.
Sir.
Thanks for the little interview. That was kind of fun.
Yeah, you got
no problem. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. And if you've made it this far, go ahead and give us a like or 5 stars or whatever means you like us.
Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. And check out our website for more video content and extras.
While you're there, shoot us a message if you want to be a guest. We'd love to have you on.
Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.